Hello and welcome back to the Hardwood Hoops podcast. This is episode 45 and I'm your host, Liam Horsley. Unfortunately, this week we don't have our usual co-host. Ben has got some family things, so he's a bit too busy, but we do have a special guest. We have 1/5 of the NBA UK fans, guys. Rich Barrett on the podcast, you've heard before. How are you doing, Rich?
I am good, thanks, Liam. Thanks for having me back, especially after the drunken antics on the NBA to Z challenge. I feel quite privileged to be allowed back after that. That was a lot of fun, though. We enjoyed that.
But this is your hat-trick appearance, and we've just said no drinking, no YouTube challenges for a while, and then you're back on.
Excellent. Yeah, it's always a pleasure to join you guys, mate. Always a pleasure.
And some would say we've upgraded on our co-host for looks, but Ben's not here to defend himself, so that's fine.
Yeah, I don't think let's not fire that one at him when he's not here to defend it yet.
Cool. So, plan for today, we're going to have a little bit of a chat at the start about a couple of topics I wanted to ask Rich about. Then we're going to move on to a couple of segments. So we've got ups and downs, where we're going to go through one bad and one good thing so far from the season for each conference. Then Rich is going to give us his 3 most shocking results so far, and we're going to talk about those teams. And then I'm going to end by making him make a finals pick way too early. And we're going to make him hold to that pick for the whole season. So that is the plan. Let's kick it off with NBA UK fan stuff then. Just wanted to ask you how you guys are doing. And in terms of the future, now we're going back into like another tier 4 thing. Have you got more content on the horizon? Because I know you guys have been keeping everyone going a little bit at times.
Yeah, always. We had a little AGM just before Christmas, which we're going to try and do a little bit more regularly, so it's not just an annual one. We're going to keep it going. I'm going to still be doing live at 5s. Took a little bit of a break right in December, which was nice, just sort of refresh. Gives me a little bit of time to catch up as well and fire out some Twitter DMs to people I want to get on in future. I think we've done 16 out of 30 teams now.
Wow,
so cool. Yeah, we've definitely got around the league so far, and I've probably done the easier ones, to be fair. So getting guests for the next ones is quite niche. I know Ben jumped on with me for the Cavs one, which was a lot of fun. We ended up with 3 Cleveland fans from America talking to us, and obviously Ben as well, being the only Cavs fan in the UK. So yeah, we'll still be doing them. We'll probably try and intersperse them a little bit with the live at 5. One week we might do a team special, but then the next week we might just literally grab guests on whose teams are doing well or doing badly, just talk about what they need to do, what they need to keep doing, or what they need to do better. So yeah, anyone out there who wants to jump on and talk about their team, fire me a DM on Twitter and we'll see what we can set up. But yeah, we've also started some Twitter lists as well. A little project I'm doing to try and connect more fans with fans of their own teams. So yeah, that flew out the blocks the other day. So we're just working on that. We've got some good numbers on the individual team list going up as well. It's just trying to build the network and have the connections there for everyone. So
cool.
yeah, lots going on.
The mastermind thing as well, that was really successful. I watched all those. They were really good.
Brilliant.
And some
Absolutely
people's knowledge
brilliant.
were just crazy in terms of how fast they were firing some of the answers out. It was good to watch, actually.
Yeah, unbelievable that was. I mean, we can only give praise to Matt Hardy for that, because Matt came to us and said, "Oh, I've got this idea. What do you think?" And he's like, "Oh, you guys can run with it if you want." And I just said, "No, Matt, you want to do it? Yeah, we'll host it." I was like, "But you're hosting it." And he was like, "Okay, cool." And he did a phenomenal job. I mean, me and Matt spent a lot of time writing questions, a lot. But he just done such a great job of the hosting and the engagement, and people just loved it. And like, it was really exciting watching it as well. And it tests your own knowledge as well. So it's good to do that.
Yeah, it's fun. He's a very good host. It's good that people can go watch with the IGTV stuff. You can go back, can't you, and watch it a day or so later when you've got more time, or you want to kind of do the questions yourself as well. So
yeah,
I think it's a good format. Hopefully you can do another series of it.
Yeah, I think we would like to bring that back. I mean, we have said to Matt, if he wants to run it from Nets fans, that's absolutely fine, because obviously it's his concept. But we'll see what he wants to do, if he's keen to come back and give us another series. I think a lot of people, having watched it, who might have sort of been a bit on the fence, saying, "Do I really want to jump on and maybe embarrass myself?" have actually watched it and gone, "Actually, I think I could hold my own on this." So it may be even bigger and better next year.
Cool. Well, on to a bit more basketball chat then. So before I ask you any questions, I just wanted to get your thoughts on the season in general. It's been a bit of a crazy one with some weird teams that are doing well, weird teams that are doing bad. Why do you think it's been such a crazy start? I know it's only been a week, but it seems to be more crazy than normal.
It does. I was thinking about this earlier. We're 9 days in. If you think about that, it's mad because it feels like longer. But it's so bizarre. I was trying to work out, I was looking at standings, trying to work out if there was a trend between people who weren't in the bubble or people who are only in the bubble for a certain amount of time. Was it the teams that went to the conference semis that are struggling? And there's a couple of things you look at and say, like the Hawks are doing pretty well. They're quite fresh, considering they've had 9 months off after they had the rest. But you can always flip it on its head and go, well, are these teams who've not been playing for ages going to struggle? But I was trying to post-mortem it and work it out. I just think it's just so unpredictable because you've got empty stadiums as well. And some of those stadiums are battlegrounds and that the fans get on the backs of the players. It's just crazy, mate. Like some of the stuff that's happened already, which we'll get on to talking about in a bit. I don't want to say too much too soon, but it's mad. I mean, any situation where the Orlando Magic are sitting 4-0, you know that the world's a bit of a crazy place. So shout out, Garrett.
I don't think that's going to change either throughout the season. We were talking off air that this could be a whole season. I think the playoffs are kind of always the playoffs, if I'm honest. But before the playoffs, I think we could just see a whole season of crazy results.
And as well, like it could be all sorts of stuff could happen with COVID, where players like obviously doing things they shouldn't do. Shout out James Harden. And then getting, quarantine for 10 days, but then someone gets infected, someone infects the rest of the team, a team loses a whole window of playing. It's mad. I remember when we talked, I think I was on episode 3 with you before the bubble, and we sat and talked about, do we think it will work? And I was like, I just hope it works. And it was phenomenal. How they did it was unbelievable. So this is kind of a different situation. Obviously, people living at home, seeing other people, spending time with families, getting on planes, going to different cities. Anything can happen. If we finish the season in the allotted time window, that will be an achievement in itself.
Yeah, I completely agree. Before we go on to talk about Mr. James Harden, who you mentioned a minute ago, I wanted to ask you first about your team. For anyone that doesn't know, you're a Celtics fan. I'd say you're quite a neutral Celtics fan as well. You're never too high, but you're never too low either, which is a good thing. What's your opinion on how they've started this season and also in terms of where they could go? Are you still as confident maybe as you were a few weeks ago?
Yeah, I do try. I think the word I try and use is measured. I don't try and get too. I'm not one of these Celtics fans who completely loses their mind when we get knocked out of the Eastern Conference Finals again, because we're used to going there. I'm just like I always have hope in my heart. Do you know what I mean? I was like, I'd love to see my team win another chip. I remember what it was like in 2008. It was an unbelievable feeling. But I don't let it run away with me too much. So I'm sitting there thinking, well, we're going to win. Who's going to beat us? Because you're kind of setting yourself up for a fall with that. Because basketball is very unpredictable in a lot of senses. So it's funny because I know Ben had the Celtics finishing top of the East in his predictions.
He did. Very high on.
Did you have
the Celtics this year?
Yeah, indeed, very high indeed. Like too high maybe, but that's everyone's opinion is valid. Like so, did you have us fourth?
No, I had you second,
okay.
but I changed it last minute. So you were in third, and I had the Nets in second. Then I flipped it last minute because I think KD and Kyrie are probably going to rest quite a lot. After a few weeks, maybe I'm regretting that and happy the other way around. But yeah, I still had you in the top 3. Ben had you. But Ben thinks you'll finish a few games ahead of the Bucks as well. So he was very confident.
I hope he's right. I mean, I hope he's right. I when I did my predictions for the And One podcast, I put the Celtics at 5th. And the reason being is I've got this tiny little concern somewhere. I don't know what it's to do because obviously Jason Tatum's just signed a big contract. Jaylen Brown's on a good contract. I've just got a little bit of concern in my mind that one of them's going to get an injury, which takes them out for 30 to 40 games. I don't know where it's come from, or it's obviously not positive thinking either. But
I did see that on Twitter actually that you put that out there, and I was thinking that is tempting fate to an awful level.
Yeah, true, but it's just like a niggling thought that's in the back of my head, and I don't know. Maybe I'm cautious, and I don't want to elevate us too much because it would disappoint me. But no, I just think there's other teams ahead of us that could lock in the home court. But yeah, it started okay. I mean, obviously beating the Bucks in the first game was phenomenal, even though it was by 1 point. But I just loved I think Marcus Smart drew 3 charges off Giannis in one game, and he's a defensive beast. I mean, I think he's a free agent at the end of next season, I might have to
You
fact
love
check
him
that.
as well, don't you? As a
Oh,
player?
mate, I'm loving him. I mean, you only got to look at my Twitter header. It's like Marcus Smart Appreciation Society. But I mean, potentially, obviously, he could go when the time comes for free agency, because I'm not sure Danny Ainge will pay him as much as someone else will want to pay him. But I'm just enjoying him while he's here. But obviously, yeah, Christmas Day was it was just dropped off in the fourth. It was like, what's happened? But shout out to the Nets. They wanted it more.
Yeah, they were good that day. Very
Yeah,
good.
really, really good. I mean, like I said to you, I stayed up till 1 o'clock in the morning watching that with my daughter. I'd have many vodkas, but that was the thing. I don't tend to like get mardy or throw stuff around at the end of the game. I was like, all right, we should probably go to sleep now. but
And you
yeah,
got the Pistons next as well in a double header, which I think is important to get you back up toward the top of the East standings. I think.
yeah, hopefully so. I mean, I did sort of at the start of the season say I think if we might go 3-7 in the first 10. Again, I think I'm sometimes too low on my team, but I could probably attribute that a little bit to being a Coventry City football supporter, because if it translates across, then you tend to be a little bit more cautious. But yeah, 2 very winnable games. I mean, obviously beat the Grizzlies as well, but I think the one thing that stands out for me is that everyone who we've played against has scored over 100 points against us, and that's something that for the last few seasons we've been quite good defensively. So yeah, that's a little bit of a concern at the moment. But yeah, Jaylen Brown last night, wasn't it? Yeah, last night. I lose track of days. Absolutely lit it up. So he's playing phenomenally. So
Yeah, he's
that
playing
is
really
also
well. Daniel Tice as well is doing well again as well. He's
Yeah.
starting at the moment over Tristan Thompson, which I knew Ben thought that Tristan Thompson would be the starter, but Daniel Tice still seems to get in some good minutes. So yeah, it's good that you're getting minutes from him. But I agree, you've got a very good defensive team, especially with those 2 wings. When your best 2 players are wing players and they're good going forward and at defending, that's almost a key to success in the modern day NBA. So it's very weird that you're conceding more points. And your coach as well, he's known for his defensive schemes.
Yeah.
So I'm not quite sure what it is. Jeff Teague is not a good defender, which
Jeff
might
Teague's a terrible defender. He doesn't defend. There's lots of things about Teague that concern me. We could talk probably for a long time about that.
But he's not much of a worse defender than Kemba. I know, because Kemba's so much better offensively, but the gap's not as much as what you'd think. So for them to be struggling as much as they are against point guards is a little bit of a worry. But maybe that's just rotations and just getting the season off. We'll have time will tell, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I can't put my finger on it. I mean, when I was looking at the scores, obviously, I was like, yes, everyone's clocked over 100 against us. I was like, what's changed? I mean, losing Gordon Hayward is not going to lose you that much defense that those things are happening. But quite often over the last couple of seasons, like you check a Celtic score, and however much we scored, the other team's in the 90s in terms of points. So that's, I don't know, as long as you score more points than the other team, I guess that's the important thing. Yeah, but then you would run the risk of doing a Washington Wizards and just running up and down the court. And that's just, we'll talk more about that as well. So
yeah, definitely. Cool. So the last question I want to ask you before we get onto our topics then was James Harden, a player that me and Ben are not quite as high on. So it's good to get someone on who maybe doesn't dislike him as much as me and Ben. What are your thoughts about the trade in general, and kind of also how he's acting being a Houston Rocket and with the whole strip club incident?
James Harden is a top 5-6 player in the league. Dan Healy kind of on his Miami Heat podcasts kind of shares a lot of my feelings. Is when a player like that becomes available, you have to consider it, okay? Because I mean, the guy potentially you could stick the guy on a team if it's the right fit, which he's clearly struggled to find in Houston. It could bring you a championship. Quite fit, like high percentage chance that it could get you at least to the finals. So whenever someone like that becomes available, I'm not one of these people who is like, no, I won't trade Tyler Hero and someone else for him, because you've got to be realistic. Yeah, you will only get potentially a couple of years of commitment, and is commitment the issue with him? Because he likes to party, doesn't he?
He does like to party a lot.
But he likes to party.
Miami might be the worst place for that to happen as well.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think Mike Miller was talking about it on Double Clutch, send him to Utah. But then Utah's actually not that bad for strip clubs, apparently, which is amazing, seeing as they don't have music, so I don't really know what they dance to. But yeah, it's a strange one. I mean, I just think that if you're there or thereabouts, getting to conference finals, NBA finals, and a player of that quality comes available or is in talks, you can't just knock it out and go, no, not interested. I don't think he fits on the Celtics. I think potentially we would have to give up Jaylen Brown as well. And if you'd asked me at the start of the season, I would have said I'm not keen on that. Asking me today, I'm doubly not keen on that. In terms of, I just think what he's doing is phenomenal. But it does raise the question: do you go for it, take the plunge, get him on your team, maybe win a title in the next couple of years, or possibly, very possibly win a title, or do you carry on as is, keep getting to Eastern Conference Finals, maybe get to the finals? Do you get to make that step up? I don't know. It's tough. I think for me as well, Smart would definitely be in any trade. That would hurt me. I would be sad. But at the end of the year, at the end of the season, if I'm sitting there and James Harden's holding the Finals MVP and the Celtics have won another title, am I unhappy about it?
No,
probably
definitely not.
Yeah,
you got a Harden jersey on as well. By that point, I reckon.
Yeah,
Smart will be on fire.
No, mate, I'd never do it. Even if Marcus Smart turned round to the Celtics, throwing middle fingers as he walked out the door, I'd still love him. So that's just not up for discussion. So, but yeah, I don't think the Celtics is right for him. I genuinely think if Philadelphia can get him, I think they make big moves. And even if they send Ben Simmons the other way,
yeah, that's the team that I've kind of pitched for him the whole time with the whole Daryl Morey connection. But they've started 3-1. They look good. So I think the longer they play well, the worse it is for them in terms of getting a Harden trade. Because why would you want to rip it up if Simmons and Embiid are doing well? That'll be their argument.
Yeah, the deeper we go into the season as well, the more his trade stock potentially declines. I mean, the guy came back and chucked up 44 points, 17 assists on his first game. When everyone was saying he was out of shape, he wasn't out of shape. He was wearing about 3 jumpers, I think. He looked a little bit thick, but he's got that sort of body shape. But I mean, even doing that on the court, his trade value potentially is decreasing, as his potential suitors are doing okay, and sort of settling into their groove in the season. I don't know. I think the Heat have sort of took themselves out of the equation now, from what I understand. But you never know what to believe on Twitter. But I don't know. It's like I said, mate. If we're sat there at the end of the season with Harden Finals MVP and a Celtics title, I'm happy. If he goes somewhere else, I don't know. I genuinely can't call it. He could end up finishing the season on the Rockets. It's just such a strange situation.
As I said, if you had to put your money on it, and it was trade deadline night, and we're an hour away from the deadline, he hasn't been traded yet. Do you think he still gets traded, or if you had to put your money on it, or are you confident that he might stay? Because I know 90% of the people that I spoke to think they don't know where he's going to go, but he will get traded somewhere at least.
Yeah, I think the likelihood is he goes somewhere. It's like, does he get Kawhi'd and sent from like San Antonio to Toronto, and somewhere completely random? Do the Rockets just go, do you know what? Just get him gone, and we'll take what we can get. I'd say it's probably likely he does move, but I think all the people that he's putting on his list aren't necessarily the people who want to have him. That he's asking for these sort of bigger market teams, which are quite stable.
Well, they haven't got enough assets to trade for him, which is the other
exactly.
issue, because the Rockets aren't just going to take some rubbish deal because James Harden asked them to. That they need to get wherever they can.
Exactly.
I just keep saying to everyone privately, don't sleep on the Warriors. If they decide to finally make a trade and say, look, Clay or Draymond, whichever one of you, we're just going to cut ties now. We're going to put in Wiseman, 2 first-round picks, maybe Kelly Oubre as well. I think that there's an option that the Rockets could take the best package, and I think the Warriors could have that if they put Clay in the trade. I know that will kill any fans because Clay is like beloved, but it's a business, and I think if they made that decision to trade that star asset, almost like Philly have to do, because everyone loves Ben Simmons.
True.
And if you made that decision to trade Clay or Simmons, I think that the Rockets may do it. But we'll have to see. I think.
Imagine that backcourt. That's crazy. That is crazy shooting.
That's my thought process. I think those two and Draymond Green and even Wiggins, if they keep him, I just think that offensively they'd score a hell of a lot of points.
And it's relevant as well because obviously the Warriors have lost Clay again. Trading an injured player, how does it look on them Do they care? They probably do. I think the organisation's quite wholesome. But like you say, mate, it's a business. Yeah, exactly, and it's a business. I mean, we're all NBA GMs when we're on Twitter throwing shade at our actual GMs, going, "Oh, why didn't you pull the trigger to get Jimmy Butler and this, that, and the other?" But ultimately, it comes down to that person who sat in that front office going, "Let's do this." So, but yeah, Warriors, that's an interesting shout, mate. And
yeah, I got 76ers and Warriors, and I've seen a couple of people throw the Hawks and Pelicans because they got too many players. So just packaging a load of players together. But I think it's going to be a create. Whenever we get that notification, it's probably going to be 1 a.m. UK time when we see a Woj notification that pops up that says Harden's been traded for about 20 different things. But it'll be exciting whenever it happens.
It's like James Harden has joined the Orlando Magic. You'll just be like,
I don't want to see that. The Magic UK guys will be having a field day with that.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't actually spoken to them about that, but yeah, it's very realistic that we could wake up to something completely ridiculous, like James Harden moves to Sacramento for 24 first-round picks and cash considerations. We'll just see what happens. No, not at all, mate. I think they will have to do something by trade deadline. So.
Okay, cool. Let's move on from the beard who loves the strippers and talk about some NBA ups and downs. We're going to go through the East and West, one thing each, one good, one bad. I'll start us off with the East with your very own Celtics, but unfortunately, I've not gone with them for the good. I've gone with KD. As Ben's mentioned many times, I'm a bit of a KD homer. And for me, he looked back to his old self. And it's just been nice to see in general because we obviously don't want injuries. I know he's got almost a bad rep around the league for joining the Warriors, but he's my favourite player, and I love that Warriors team that he was on, just the way they played basketball. So I'll always think he's one of the best. So it's nice to see him, and I think the Nets look even better than I thought, to be honest.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's funny you mentioned that because my positive that I've put is the Brooklyn Nets, and I think that does again contribute to my lack of homerism that I try and remain balanced. But to be honest, it's like even Kyrie. Like, I have to park the whole Kyrie feelings and what I think of him about being a bit of a weirdo, just to watch what he can do on the court. And him and KD, it's so good to see KD back fit as well, and not looking much of a step off what he was. And I've just really enjoyed him. I mean, like Theo, and I know Matt Hardy always talk about the Nets are the most relevant team in the league, and I think they're probably right at the moment because that is bringing a lot of attention to them. And it's nice to see them playing as they are, but also with the guys from the previous seasons around them as well. I mean, obviously, I know they've lost Spencer Dinwiddie, which is a shame, a real shame, and that will affect them.
It's a big loss as well, isn't it, defensively, especially?
Yeah, of course. But yeah, I mean that's my positive. It's like having a new contender. I mean, the Nets have always been around 7th and 8th seed, but it's another team strengthened, which sort of upsets the apple cart a little bit, and you've got another team you've got to think about. Whereas before previous seasons, I know the Nets have beat Celtics a few times, but I'd expect probably like 3-1 if we're playing them 4 times. But now I'm like, okay, 2-2 might be nice. I'll probably take it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the Eastern Conference always gets real positive reviews when it comes to the end of the season because the playoff matchups are so good, especially when it gets down to the final 4. Whereas now you've got 6 great teams. So I think the whole playoff setup in the East is going to be crazy to see who gets in, who doesn't get in, and who plays who. Because if we had a Celtics-Nets series with Kyrie, I think that would be fun.
Yeah, definitely. More fun if there was fans in.
I'm hopeful. Touch wood with the vaccine in America that they'll push it out even quicker than we are.
Cool.
The only other positive I've written down, just in case we had the same, was the Hawks. They've impressed me. They're still as bad defensively as you'd expect, but they're scoring a hell of a lot of points. And I just think they've got a good rotation. It'd be interesting to see what they do with John Collins. But for me, they've started really well as well. Probably better than I thought. I had them still doing well, but I didn't expect them to do as well as they have done offensively to start with. So that's been another positive point.
Agreed. It's Hawks are probably one of, if you ask people like what, I think this was a question on, I put to Double Clutch as well. Obviously, apart from your own team, what teams are you going to enjoy watching or be looking out for? And I think for most people, they would say, I'm going to probably watch more Hawks games than I have done for the last 5-6 years, probably since they were that 60-win season that they had. Yeah. So yeah, Trae Young, probably the worst defender in the league, as we know. But it doesn't matter because what the kid can do is phenomenal. And And yeah, it's nice to see them doing well. And again, that was one of, like I said earlier, I was trying to pin down, is it because they're fresh because they've had 9 months off? But I think there's too many variables at the minute. But yeah, it's great to see them doing what they're doing. And I wonder if the Rondo factor will play in come playoff times.
Oh my God, the famous playoff Rondo.
Mate, I'm here for it. I've witnessed it firsthand.
Ben loves a bit of playoff Rondo as well after the Lakers run, so he's a fan of the playoff Rondo. Cool. Let's go on to a bad thing then from the Eastern Conference. Why don't you go first and tell me what's on your list?
Okay. I'm going to go with the Washington Wizards. More from the point that I'm just a little disappointed. I know, like we said, it's way too soon to be making assumptions for the whole season, but I think it was maybe Boxing Day or the 27th. But I sat and watched a Wizards game from the day before. I think it was one of the Magic games. And I was absolutely exhausted. I was lying on my couch, right? So I'm literally as chilled as you can be. And watching it was exhausting. Their complete inability to play any defensive basketball is terrifying. And like that, they score loads of points, but it's like just you get a sore neck watching it because it's just end to end. And
that's probably the 130, 120 loss they had to the Magic, I'm guessing, that you've watched there, because that was a bad one defensively.
Yeah, and it was. I mean, like I said to you before, like, I'm not a tactician. I'm not an expert on plays and schematics and stuff like that. But even I know when defense is not good, and it's just non-existent with them. And I was just like, it was just exhausting watching that game. And like, I don't know, it was the game that Beal looked really, really pissed off. He was sat down. I think it was the fourth quarter, and he was just like, you just kind of wonder what's going through his head. Is he getting to the point where he's just like, this is ridiculous? I didn't need Russell Westbrook. I needed people who could defend a bit more.
Yeah, potentially. I sat down and watched that first game against the 76ers, and I've got a friend who's a very big Westbrook fan. So he was texting me the whole way through saying, oh my God, they're going to beat the 76ers. I told you Westbrook was going to take them to the fourth seed. And then it got to the fourth quarter and the same old story happened where it was turnover, bad three, no defense. And I was like, oh no, it's only one game, but it looked like a bit of an ugly finish. And that's kind of carried on all the way through.
Yeah.
Like we said, there's so long to turn it around, but I think bad defense is very, very obvious, and I don't think they've got many good defenders in the rotation. That's their issue, and I think they're going to take a long time to improve enough as a team to get as high maybe as people like Ben, because Ben had them, I think, in the fourth or fifth seed.
Did he?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Blimey. I mean,
them or the Hawks in the fifth seed. I can't remember which one. I think it was the Wizards, but he loves Russell Westbrook. So
yeah, I mean they're 0-4, but Russ is averaging a triple-double, so every cloud.
Yeah, that is the Westbrook story.
Isn't
I
it?
had the Wizards as well on my list, but as soon as you said them, I'll go to my second choice, which was the Raptors. I put them in, I think it was sixth I had them in, because I think they've got the best coach, probably. I think you guys have probably got the second or third best coach in the league, but for me, Nick Nurse is right up there as probably the best coach in the NBA, so I had them still in the playoffs, but I was a bit worried about them in terms of how they're going to score. They've obviously lost a lot of players in the last 2 or 3 seasons.
Yeah.
Now Kyle Lowry is a little bit older. They lost both centers from last year who were key in the championship run the year before. I know, similar to what we just said, the Wizards, it's only been a few games, but they're 0-3 at the moment. They haven't looked great offensively. And the center position, even though you probably love Aaron Baines, like most people do, I think that it's a big step down offensively. And I think they're just going to struggle to score enough points to beat some of these bigger teams like the Celtics, Nets, Hawks, people like that, 76ers. They're all going to score high every single night. And I think that could be the Raptors' issue for me.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, I'm a little bit surprised to be sitting here looking at them not having won yet. But then I think of the roster change. Obviously, you've got Serge went as well. Gasol. They're big players. Well, big players in that team. Do you know what I mean? It's like they're hard to replace. And they've been there for quite some time as well. And that's like, I know we talked about the Magic not having had much sort of upset in their roster. It's quite steady. Only a few additions here and there. And I just think maybe has too much changed on the Raptors. That might go a little way to explaining it. But it's just, it's still early, isn't it? I think we're going to caveat literally everything we throw out there with. It's still early. But yeah, early indications aren't good. But yeah, I'm sure they've got to be a playoff team. You'd be very, very surprised if it went the other way for them.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that the benefit of it being so early is that, yes, they are playing bad at the moment, but it's a long season still. I know it's less games, but Nick Nurse could easily turn that around. But at the moment, fortunately, they made the bad list. Let's go over to the West then. When you kick us off with a team that's doing well.
Okay, and this one, if you'd asked me to do this before the season, I'd have given you this would probably be the 30th team that I would have picked to expect to be on this list. Now. You know who's coming? The Sacramento Kings.
Yes.
Wow. I put them as to have the worst record in the league on my NBA UK Fans 2021 challenge.
Wow. Worse than the Knicks.
Yeah, I literally was so low on them, I'd almost forgotten they existed. Which I think is half of their problem in terms of being small markets. A lot of people do forget about them. But yeah, they've had a great start, and yeah, again, it's early days, but it's early days to the point where they've beaten Denver twice and beaten the Suns, which are two teams that are people's locks for the playoffs. So
yeah, I agree, and I think that the other thing is, it's all right saying everything's too early, but with a team like the Kings, I think they were projected to win 21 games. So even though it's early, they've won 3 games out of 4. So regardless of how long's left of the season, they've got a good percentage towards the total wins they already expected as a worst case scenario. So I think that when you're looking at the good teams, there's a lot of scope to say, they can improve quite well. But when you're thinking of teams like the Kings that are doing better than you expect, I think it just helps them in terms of getting to that final win total. And Fox has looked good as well. I'm not the world's biggest fan of Fox, but shooting wise, but he's impressed me so far. And like you said, they've had some good wins against a Denver team that maybe we'll talk about in a minute. But yeah, I think the Kings have shocked a few people. Yeah,
a couple of double-doubles for Marvin Bagley as well. And I think the game where he didn't get many boards, he got 20-odd points instead. So it's nice to see him. It's nice to see him doing a little bit better, especially when he was picked ahead of Luka Doncic and Trae Young. Just a side note there. But yeah, they're my surprise, almost positives. It's nice to see something like that, and yeah, it's a bit wholesome, isn't it? When a team that you were that low on sort of turn around and almost tap you on the shoulder and go, "We're not as bad as you think we are," you know.
Yeah, it's a better younger roster. Still worried about the coach, but Halliburton's looked nice as well off the bench, so that's another good sign. I had 2 written down for mine because I thought you would go with the Kings.
Okay.
So I'm choosing between the Clippers and Suns. I'm going to go with the Clippers, who are 4-1, leading the West, just because I think that people forget how good they were.
Yeah.
They weren't great in the playoffs. They had a bad bubble experience, which we kind of all know about. Paul George, playoff P did not work out as we all that he thought, at least. But for me, roster-wise, last year they had the best roster in the NBA. They were better than the Lakers. This year, I think the Lakers have probably improved upon that, but we still know the Clippers' top 5, 6, 7 is still really good. And I've just been impressed with how they've kind of rebounded after a bit of a dodgy spell. They lost a few players in the rotation as well. Like Montrezl Harrell played a lot more minutes. And Jermichael Green as well, who they've lost, played good minutes off the bench. So I've just been impressed with how they've kind of turned it straight back around and just got back into a normal routine of winning the games they should win. We're going to talk about the game they lost in a minute, but in general, the 4 wins have been pretty impressive. And Kawhi and PG both look really good. Yeah,
I mean, I don't know if you saw the incident with Kawhi. Was it Serge Ibaka's elbow in Kawhi's face?
Yeah.
That was horrific. I very, very strongly don't repost or share videos of injuries because I think it's a little bit morbid. But I did see that on my timeline. I was like, Jesus, that has to hurt a lot. How he's not had major concussion off that as well, because Serge is a big guy.
Yeah, I was going to say, he's a huge bloke.
But yeah, they have looked good. I mean, again, I did put them to have the best record in the West, which surprised a few people. They were like, "Really, you're that high on the Clippers?" I can't remember. It might even be Ben who pulled me up on that. But yeah, I think solid start for them. And yeah, like you say, they've lost some of the people who gave them the consistency. They have added some good pieces, though. I mean, I think adding Serge Ibaka, there's chemistry with him and Kawhi already as well. Which is never a bad thing. If you take off 2 people, if you put someone on a team who's won a championship with one of your 2 best players, it's going to be a benefit.
Yeah, I agree. I love that sign of Serge. I'm not quite as high on the Nicholas Batum one. And he seems to be getting good minutes for them, which is, I don't think that can happen long term if they want to win a title. But I do like the rotation. I think people just forget how good they were in the regular season. I know they failed in the playoffs. They were still the second or third best team last year in the regular season. So I'm with you. I think there'll be 1 or 2 seed in the West quite comfortably. Cool. And then let's move on to a negative then. I wonder if we'll have the same team. Who's the negative one from the West?
I've gone with the Warriors.
Different team.
Yeah, I mean, I know they've started 2-2, but just the start. I mean, they didn't. I mean, I know the first game was the Nets, wasn't it? Which was never going to be easy. It was. Yeah, it was the Nets.
Yeah, Nets and the Bucks.
Yeah, and like we say, it's still too early to say, but just as a starting point, it just didn't. I felt for Steph. I was just looking at him, and he's almost sort of looking around, a little, not bewildered, but a little bit like, man, I wish Clay was here. So yeah, and I don't know. I was very high on Golden State coming into the season. I've even stuck them at 4th spot in the West with home court on, like I said, the M1 podcast challenge. Not regretting it yet, but I think I may do at the end as we get towards the playoffs. But I don't know. I thought they were going to come back fresh. I was expecting big things from Steph, and he was a little bit way off with his shooting as well the first couple of games. But I don't know. I quite like the Warriors. I just wanted to see something a little different from them. So that was my low point.
Yeah, I was the same with you. I had the Warriors. I think it was 4th or 5th. I have to check, but I think it was 4th as well. Similar reasons to you, but Draymond Green hasn't played yet. And if you're missing a player who gets paid that much money, who'll start every game, I think that does make a difference to a team like that. Yeah. So hopefully when he comes back, they'll improve, especially defensively, because they're giving up a lot of points. Those first 2 games that they lost was the worst start that any team's ever had in NBA history in terms of the first 2 losses. They lost by 26, and I think it's 41 or 40.
39 of the Bucks, wasn't it? Yeah, 26 and 39.
Yeah, so that's the worst start that the team's had. So the game winner as well against the Bulls, that was a funny moment. And thankfully last night, I think it was last night or the night before, they played the Pistons. They looked a bit more steady. Yeah. And Steph got 30 points as well. So hopefully he's back to his kind of old levels. But they got an interesting series now with the Blazers. And a lot of people have either had the Blazers at 4 or the Warriors at 4 that I've seen. So it'll be interesting to see over 2 games who wins that. I'd be a bit worried if I was a Warriors fan trying to guard Lillard at the moment.
True. One thing that, I mean, you'd probably say this more in a normal season. You probably wouldn't get this in a normal season in terms of crowds and that, but they have got 7 home games on the spin. So they've got 2 Portland, Sacramento, Clippers twice, Toronto Raptors and Pacers. So does that give you a little bit of consistency in terms of the fact that you go to Chase Center? Is the Chase Center? Yeah. You go to work. Right, yeah. Go to Chase Center, do your work, go home. You repeat for 7 times in a row. Maybe that will help.
A lot of these players wouldn't have played in that arena very much as well because obviously Steph didn't play last season at all, hardly. Kelly Oubre and Wiggins didn't play as much. Well, obviously Oubre wasn't there. Wiggins didn't play. They got rookies like Wiseman. He's only played there twice ever. So yeah, I think you could be right. There could be some consistency, and hopefully now Steph's back. And I think Draymond Green, they're saying is only a week or 2 away. So maybe he'll be back and they can kind of fire. Hopefully for our prediction's sake.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say that they can save some face for us as well.
And I still think they're going to trade for someone, whether it's Beal or Harden. I think they're going to trade for someone. So we'll see. My negative was the Nuggets, another team similar to Warriors that not everyone, but a lot of people had doing well. They started 1-3. They had those Kings losses that we've spoken about. I'm just a bit worried about their defense again. They're never great defensively, but I think they're even worse now that Jeremy Grant's gone to the Pistons.
Yeah.
And I just worry against those 2 LA teams, especially. I'd like to add my Mavs in, but unfortunately, we are playing not very well. But against those 2 LA teams, I don't know how they're going to stop them defensively as the season goes on. And the Nuggets are the sort of team that they don't care about the regular season as much. They're a proper playoff team now. But if you're going to struggle at the start of the regular season, they have to try and turn it around if they want a home court advantage in the playoffs. So yeah, I was a bit worried about them. I thought they'd come out of the traps flying because they've only really had a couple of roster changes. But maybe those changes are a bit more significant than I first thought.
Yeah, the Jeremy Grant one's a mad one because Denver offered him the same money to stay, I believe.
That's true. Yeah,
and they matched it, but he said, "I want to go and do more things on another team." And you kind of wonder, he's getting a decent bag anyway, so he could have stayed in Denver and been on a contending team, I'm not convinced that they'd be like celebrating a championship in the next 2 years, but it's not out of the question. But maybe he just wanted to ball out a little bit on his own for a few years and then see what happens after that. But I think he's possibly a bigger loss than even most Denver fans realised. Like you said, that he was a bit of a presence, and he is doing well in Detroit as well. I think he put up 30 something points the other day, or 30 points the other day. But I don't know. I still find it a little strange that he chipped out of there to go to a franchise like Detroit. But
Yeah, I think
everyone's got their reasons.
It's a weird move from him, in my opinion. I think the Nuggets were probably as shocked as anyone when they offered him the same amount of money, and then he still chose the other team. I think they probably didn't see that coming, because that's when they made a bit of a late move for JaMychal Green then from the Clippers, just to get someone in who can actually guard a power forward. But I've heard rumours that they could be a Harden trade candidate, which wouldn't shock me. If you go Murray, Jokic, and Harden, I think that's a Western Conference Finals team at least.
Yeah, definitely.
It'd be a shame to see Porter Jr. go, but you got to do, like we said earlier, you've got to do that if you've got a chance to get James Harden.
Exactly. We can't get too sentimental about these things, innit? I think you referenced the Isaiah Thomas thing earlier as well. I was as sad as anyone to see him go. The night that obviously Kyrie announced he wanted out of Cleveland, I think I was actually watching The Departed, and I put a tweet out saying something along the lines of, the Kyrie to Boston rumours are almost ridiculous as Leonardo DiCaprio's Boston accent. And then it happened, and I was just like, wow, okay. So, but yeah, I don't know. MPJ is certainly one who's coming good by the looks of it, finally.
Yeah, he's going to have a big season, I think.
Yeah, so we'll just see where he ends up. But he's not, I don't think he's, what's the word? He is expendable if you're looking to get someone like Harden.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. All right, let's move on to our next topic then. 3 shocking results. This is something that you brought to me that you wanted to talk about. So I'm going to pass over to you to kind of talk about each game, and we'll see which ones you picked.
Yeah, I'm not going to deep dive them. I'll just talk about the 3 results that have caught my eye. Funny, the Bucks feature in here twice, but we'll get onto them next. The first one is Dallas Mavericks 124, Clippers 73.
Crazy first half.
Crazy, just like 50 points up at half time, weren't they? Was it like 77-27 or something, or 78-28?
NBA record half-time lead, that was.
Yeah, insane. And the reason it's like a shock result for me now, even more so, is because that is the Clippers' only loss, and that's the Mavs' only win.
Yeah.
And the Mavs are now sitting like top of the West. The Clippers are now sitting top of the West, and the Mavs are something like 13th. But it's just bizarre. Like, you don't expect to see. I think any time there's a points deficit of high 40s or anything like 50, you tend to notice it. When you're checking the scores the morning after, you're like, whoa, what happened there? And then you'll drill down a little bit, like, okay, they went to sleep in the first, second, and third quarter, but had a good fourth. But yeah, that was just nuts.
Yeah, that was one that the whole NBA UK community was buzzing off as well, because it was an 8:30 tip-off on Sky Sports, so it meant that more people could watch it. And I think after the first quarter, it was something like, I can't remember if it was 30-something to 7 or to 9, and I think they were shooting 10%, Clippers were, from 3. And I could just see Twitter going nuts about how crazy the game was. But since then, the Clippers have got back to normal, so maybe it was just a freak game.
Yeah, it was a very strange one. So yeah, first quarter was 36-13. Quarter 2 is the one that sent it home, 41-14. So yeah, you just wonder what the mindset of a Clippers player is at half time, and you're like,
take me out. That'd be my mindset.
Yeah, you just like, rest. With 50 points down, it's half time. I guess you could probably flip it 2 ways. You go, still win this, lads. Still win this. But I don't know. It's a hell of an ask, isn't it? But yeah, so that was the first one.
That one was weird as well, because the Mavs left starters in midway through the fourth quarter, which I just found so strange. But apparently it's just for fitness reasons, because we've had obviously such a weird start to the season. But yeah, that was a shocker one. What's your next game?
This next one I've put on the list was Bucks beating the Heat by 47 points. Simply because I just didn't see that coming. I thought that was going to be a lot more measured, a lot more balanced. And I was talking to Josh Sloan about this, because he's quite a new basketball fan. He started following it last year. And he was just saying to me, he's like, what's happened there? He's like, we beat him in the playoffs last year. And it's just, it comes down exactly what we said earlier, Liam, about it's just a bit weird at the minute. It's like the shortest 71-day off season, I think it was. So there's probably, I mean, Jimmy Butler might even still be tired from that game 5. But
essentially, that's how hard he works.
Yeah, but like you sort of look at these scores and you're just like, okay, this is quite strange. So because that followed up obviously after the Clippers game. I think it was the day after.
The same night, was it?
I think it was the day after, maybe, but or even 2 days after. But it's these ones that are catching my eye, and you're just like, wow, okay, that's quite a margin for teams that you expect to be a little bit closer together in terms of where they're at. So
yeah, it's always stranger when you see 2 good teams and the deficit being that big rather than a top versus bottom seed. But yeah, I'm sure Dan Healy was not happy watching that game.
No, I think he was quite balanced about it. He was like, because I don't think Giannis scored that many points in that game. I'm just going to check it on here because I've got my trusty iPad nearby. So in that, what was Giannis? Giannis only scored 9 points, and that was what Dan said. He was like, my team kept Giannis to single figures. Your team could never. And I loved that. I was just like, if you could put a positive spin on a 47-point loss, that's it.
That was the game that Middleton went crazy on, wasn't it? I think.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, 25 points, 10 from 13 shooting.
Good. So. And then game 3 as well, I think, involves the Bucks, but it was the opposite story from that game, I think.
Yeah, so you've got probably what you would argue is the best single game team in Milwaukee, right? So, and I'll credit Theo with this one. He put that spin on a little while ago, and it made a lot of sense to me. It's like the Bucks in a single game are an absolute, it's almost like you don't want to do it because they're that good. And then you've got the Knicks, another team that formerly close to your heart. And I put £1 on the Knicks to win, okay, at 5-1, just for a piss take. I was just like, do you know what? They got to win at some point. And I threw a quid. So I woke up like £6 in my Sky bet, which is nice. But just seeing like the Bucks losing to the Knicks is just a surprise result. It's one of the last. And yeah, you do get teams at the bottom beating teams at the top. But sometimes it's close. It's further into the season, or someone's missing, etc., etc. But that was just a weird one. And Julius Randle balled out as well. So he's been.
Did. Alfred Payton as well was hitting threes that game as well. I remember.
I know it's mad what he's done since he cut that crazy hair off. But he's sort of been a bit of a journeyman, hasn't he? As well, he's sort of flitted around a bit. But yeah, will the Knicks keep that consistency? I don't know. They're a spot 500 team at the minute, though.
They're above the Bucks and the Heat and the Raptors and the Wizards in the standings. Yeah, so best moment in Knicks history, I think.
For ages, they haven't got a losing record, and they were relevant for a whole night.
So, and they scored 130, which is
exactly.
Nowadays.
But like, I throw shade at the Knicks with the best intentions because, like, I know you used to have a little bit of a soft spot for them and follow them a little bit, but I always find their fans, like, it's almost bloody minded to the point of like it's not supporting like a team like Accrington Stanley or something like that. It's just like, how do you keep doing it? But they believe, and they're like,
tough.
Nick, and they're like Knicks till I die and stuff like that, and it's just like fair play. I couldn't do it.
When they're good, and they will be good. Twitter is going to be crazy because all those fans that have lasted all these years are going to have a lot to say. And we all thought it'd be this year when they get Kyrie and KD, but unfortunately, they lost that battle. So we'll have to see next free agency whenever they get a chance to go wild again, see what they do.
Yeah. It was the mock-ups I remember before last season of Zion, KD, and Kyrie all in Knicks jerseys, and you're like, oh, it really didn't happen for you guys again.
I actually think if they'd have won the draft lottery, which they should have, because that was the last year where the odds were a bit more favoured for the worst teams. I think if they got the first pick and then Kyrie and KD hit free agency, knowing that Zion's going to be on their team, I think that might sway them a bit more than maybe, but we will never know. But that was probably one of the worst off seasons in a kind of century full of bad off seasons for the Knicks, unfortunately.
But yes, so they caught my eye with that result, and fair play to them. And I hope all the Knicks fans enjoyed it, every minute of it, and revelled in it. I've watched the highlights every day 3 times since.
Well, you never know; they might be scraping into the playoffs and playing your Celtics.
Imagine,
Imagine,
and what will probably happen is they'll beat us 4-3 in a 7-game series, and I'll just have to suck it up and just be like, okay, cool, finally turned it around.
It's either the Knicks or the Magic. That's who's going to beat you in a 7-game series one day, just to wind you up.
I think if we got the Magic in a playoff series, I'd have to delete social media, WhatsApp, everything, just so Garrett couldn't get in touch with me, because I wouldn't be able to speak to him for a few days after if we ever lost in even a game. Because you imagine Magic tend to win that first game in the playoffs, don't they?
They do,
And he'd be like, what's it going? Oh, game one, we've got you. We've got the measure of you now, boyo.
I hope this happens now, just for comedy. We can get you both on the podcast then together. That'd be the best.
I'd be happy to do it. I'm a big Geraint fan. I give him loads of gas on Twitter, and I throw him loads of shade as well. But he's a good dude, and a very, very passionate fan, loyal to the point of being deluded in some cases. But that's a whole other conversation.
That's most of us in whatever sports we follow, I think.
Pretty much.
Cool. So I wanted to end the podcast with this one. Then I wanted to ask you for your NBA Finals prediction. We're going to call it your way too early NBA Finals prediction, just to give you a bit of scope if it goes wrong. But yeah, what are you thinking?
Okay. Interesting little stat for you. I'll shout out Mike Miller for this because I put it in their podcast questions and he did the research. The only two teams to repeat since about the late 80s, after losing their first game of the season, okay, which the Lakers obviously lost.
Deep stat, I like it.
The 97-98 Bulls and the 17-18 Warriors. So both complete dynasty teams. So also, I'm not using that as why the Lakers are going to not win the title, okay? I'll put that in there. It's just an interesting fact that sort of links it in. I'm going with the Nets, mate. And some Boston fans will be like, "Oh, this guy, he shouldn't be picking the Nets. He should hate Kyrie. He should be burning effigies of Kyrie like Kyrie burns sage." I'm not here for that. I've got my thoughts in him, but I think that they'll probably go through the regular season pretty well. I think they'll get home court in the playoffs. I think they'll get hopefully KD stays fit. Hopefully Kyrie is allowed to burn sage in every stadium because obviously seems to be helping him. But I genuinely feel that if they get to the West, if they get to the finals, and it is the Lakers, they could cause them some problems. And is
that who you think it would be against, the Lakers, or you think the Clippers?
I still think the Lakers would make it to the finals. Cool. I just think they've got too much. I think the Clippers could be like a great regular season team. They could lose to like the Mavs or something like that. Who knows? Or the Nuggets again. But I don't know. I just still think if it was the Lakers, I just fancy the Nets, and I put them as my prediction pre-season as well. And if it carries on as it is, even losing Spencer, I still think they've got enough around them. And if KD and Kyrie dial in as much as they look like they can, if they spend the majority of their minutes played on the court together, I think they're formidable. Because they like Kevin Durant, it's great to see him back. Like I said earlier, he's just lethal, isn't he? Absolutely lethal.
I've got a bet on the Nets, and me and Ben have a feud about LeBron James versus Kevin Durant. So if this actually happened, even though it's not the Mavs winning the title, I'd be very happy to see KD winning their Finals MVP, and then LeBron losing 4-3 in the last minute KD shot. That'd be perfect to me.
Yeah,
I would hate it, but I would love it.
I think as well. Obviously, KD was always quite well liked around the league, but then did the Golden State snake thing. And I mean, even at that point, I wasn't that keen on him because he could have come to Boston. I get why he didn't. I don't blame him. He went and won two titles and two Finals MVPs. Arguably, could have won a third one if he hadn't got injured. That was massive. No disrespect to the Raptors, of course. But yeah, I think it would silence a lot of the haters as well. Because basically, KD's gone somewhere with his mate and a squad full of good players. And if he does it again, then it will make people sort of park that whole narrative about, oh, you just went to the team that was going to win it. So. Yeah,
especially if he ends up being Finals MVP over Kyrie and kind of being the leader on the team. That maybe, I think he's not quite yet, but as the season goes on, I think he'll be the true number one, and Kyrie will be second fiddle to him, in my opinion. But yeah, cool, good prediction. I'm happy with that.
Cool.
No Knicks versus Kings NBA Finals prediction.
No.
We won't put a bet on that yet.
No, definitely not. But imagine. We're sat here going, okay, so who's winning the finals? It's the Knicks versus the Kings. I'll be like, has the world gone crazy? Has everything stopped? Like, is that what we're left with? So
Jack from the Sacramento Kings UK Twitter page will be buzzing if
yeah, of course.
the Kings were anywhere near even a playoff berth, let alone a finals appearance. But yeah, cool. I think we'll wrap that there then, mate.
Excellent.
Thank you very much as always coming on, and also thank you for all the content that you help put out with the NBA UK fans. I speak for many of us that you guys have kind of helped keep us going at times when there's been a lot going on. So big thank you to you all for that, really.
No, we appreciate it. We appreciate the support, and we just do it for you guys. We love doing it. Of course, we absolutely love it, and we love the interaction as well. But it's just the by the fans for the fans thing is what it means. It's just to bring everyone together, talk hoops, give them a platform, and I'd shout out obviously yourself and all the other guys who do the pods as well, all the fan accounts, because none of what we do would have as much momentum without guys like yourself and what you do with your pods and everything. So
cool. Thank you very much, mate. And also Happy New Year to you and to everyone listening. Me and Ben will be back. I think it's the start of next week. We're going to review preview the week coming and review the weekend's action. But yeah, enjoy your basketball and Happy New Year to everyone.
Happy New Year, man.